from historical proportions, because the Past Poetry Project has 3 P's in it. Try saying that fast, plosively. Past Poetry Project, please.
Past Poetry Project, please.
That's really good, 4 P's. But the extra P was put in there just for dessert. So our just dessert tonight are that we're going to experience a Pulitzer Prize from the Past Poetry Project, please. Positive poetry from Gareth and Mark. Now, of course, what happens next? You have never heard of these poets, nor will you hear of them afterwards, because the skull is to show they're dead. They're so dead. But the amazing thing is, what happens tonight is for the living, and you are the living. The others caught in traffic will have to wait. Lines will form. New York freeways for the bus and then. Hey, yeah, they're coming. They found it. That's really, really good. So the world is here. We thought we'd start, and I'd like to introduce to you the tallest man in the room. You know the smartest man in the room at Enron, that documentary? Well, this is the tallest man in the room. Gareth and Mark I've known for approximately 15 years now. He's been involved in superlative poetry productions. He was a high functionary in the Austin Poetry Society, but we still love him. And he has put on many productions of dead poets. You may have noticed the skull. That's not just the Day of the Dead. It's not just for the dead poetry. It's for the fact that they're not going to write anymore. And we can misrepresent them to the height of our ability. I now introduce you to the cornerstone of the evening, Mr. Garrison, Mark.
Wow, that's going to be a hard something rather to follow. Actually, since we're such an intimate group and it's just us and the video camera, I would like to say that I can only see the bottom half of your head.
You're a lucky man.
Actually, you might not know this, but that when the Past Poetry Project was first formed in 1995, we didn't actually have a name. We were a little bit more like Emerson, Lake and Palmer. We just didn't have a name. And then 2 years later, we got interviewed by KUT, and the interviewer said, "And what's the name of your group?"
And he said, "The Beagles."
That's right. And so after that, I realized we would do better with a label.
The labels are great.
And there's nothing better than alliteration.
Clearing.
I mean, after all, it was good for Beowulf, so it should be good for us. And the P in Garrison is silent. I want to make sure you're clear about that.
Too much drinking.
So we're glad that everyone is here,
yeah.
And we thank you for being here. The Past Poetry Project was founded, gosh, how long ago was that? 19 years ago? Long time. The purpose was to give voice to poets who are no longer able to do so. Our first couple of performances were Robert Frost. We did Frost in January. It was so popular, we did Frost in February.
It was a cold winter.
It was. And we've had a small but warm following over the years. Over the years, we've performed, in addition to Frost, we've done Dickinson and Millay and Tennyson, Shakespeare, Rossetti, Wordsworth, Poe, Neruda, Lorca, Tolkien, Rumi. What was the last one we did? Speaking to the microphone.
Yeah.
I don't remember the last one we did. It might have been Tolkien. No?
It was a woman poet.
Oh, yes. Well, we did Sor Juana. We did Sor Juana. That's correct. And then I think one time you had me in to do, I can't remember her name now, the Russian poet,
Anna Akhmatova.
Anna Akhmatova.
What a poet she was.
So that was fun as well.
That was good.
So tonight, we've had a number of readers join us. When we first got started, the readers were myself, David Sharp, and Marilyn Lamine. David and I still occasionally perform together, but Marilyn has since moved. Jennifer Davis, incredibly talented Jennifer Davis, has been on a number of our readings. Scott Jones, who has been out here to do the Rubaiyat,
yes,
amazing gentleman. The talented Steve Vera helped us with Lorca, and many more. Tonight we're going to welcome Tom of the Past. He is also known as Tom the World Poet, Tom Moon 10, and Tom O'Joy, and all of him is here this evening.
All of them.
So let's have a warm hand for Tom O'Joy. So we're delighted that Tom is going to join us. Truthfully, Tom has been an incredible encouragement of the project over the years, and has actually helped me make the difficult effort to come up with the shows. So it was by his invitation we're here this evening. And when we were talking about what to do, I kind of had Innocent Vincent Millay on my mind, but we had already done a complete reading of her. So then when I started Googling her, I realized that she was a Pulitzer Prize winner, and that got me to thinking, I don't think we've ever done a reading of all Pulitzer Prize winning poets. So then I started doing the research on that. Who has won that prestigious award and who's not. Now, Tom, I have to tell you that for many years, I imagined myself being honored as a Pulitzer Prize winner. I thought that would look pretty nice behind all of the other credentials that I have, like second place winner of the Austin Poetry Society and that kind of thing. I thought, Pulitzer Prize, that sounds pretty good, huh? It does. But winning the Pulitzer is a little bit like winning the lotto. You have to play to win. All this time I've been waiting, but no. So it's really for published poets, like in a book.
Book?
Yeah, like in a book, not like the web, but like a book. So that means that it's already someone who has been recognized by publishers who are being honored. How did this all get started? Joseph Pulitzer was a newspaper publisher who allocated the sum of $250,000 in his will to Columbia University to establish a prize in 4 categories. Those categories were journalism, letters, drama, and education. So Columbia University was given these funds to administer for these prizes once Mr. Pulitzer had moved on. And the first Pulitzer Prize was awarded in 1917. Now, you'll notice that poetry is not in that list. So what happened pretty quickly on is that the college recognized that poetry is an important part of our American culture and deserves recognition. So the first couple of poets that were honored with special citations under the category of letters. And then after about 2 or 3 years, the organization finally got together and said, okay, we're going to have a category for poetry, and we've been on board ever since. My notes here. The first poet that we're going to read is the first person to have won a Pulitzer Prize. She won that award in 1918, and that was Sarah Teasdale. I was pleased to see that she was born in St. Louis. I believe St. Louis is also where Marianne Moore is from,
Great.
as well as Vincent Price.
Oh, whoa.
And my mom. All those great people.
Oh, your mom.
So Sarah Teasdale is from Missouri. She's a Missouri girl. However, she was unwell for much of her life, and so she didn't actually start going to school until she was about 14. She eventually finished college in 1903. Her first poem was published in a newspaper in 1907, and then a few years later she was honored with this prestigious award. So this first poem is called Debt. What do I owe to you who loved me deep and long? You never gave my spirit wings or gave my heart a song. But oh, to him I loved who loved me not at all, I owe the open gate that led through heaven's wall. Sarah Teasdale. Now, the next year, 2 poets were honored. And in fact, 1919 was the only year that 2 poets were honored with the Pulitzer Prize. The first poet, I have a sample of their work. I'm just going to read this poem by the first poet who was honored and see if you recognize the author. The fog comes on little cat feet. It sits looking over harbor and city on silent haunches and then moves on.
Well, the first initials are TS.
Nope.
No.
See it.
No?
It's actually, anyone else?
See it.
It's Carl Sandburg.
Yep.
I'll be sorry.
You're so close.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's Carl Sandburg,
Yep.
who is quite famous today.
Yep.
I know that's a
He
fair.
wrote Chicago, Whole Picture of the World. He wrote We the People.
Yes, he's a great guy from Illinois. And in addition to being a poet, he himself he had also worked as a porter, a bricklayer, a farm laborer, a hotel servant, a coal heaver, and was part-time a college student. He, in his lifetime, was the recipient of 3 Pulitzer Prizes, 2 for poetry and 1 for his biography of Abraham Lincoln.
Wow.
How about that?
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Now, the other person who was honored with him, so you have to remember that she's considered of the same caliber as Mr. Sandburg in 1919, is someone named Margaret Whittemer. Ever hear of her?
No.
I never heard of her. I mean, I just went, what? Who? What? Margaret Whittemer? Carl Sandburg? What? However, Pennsylvania girl, she grew up to write 40 novels, 2 of which were made into films. She wrote children's fiction, articles, and memoirs, in addition to 9 volumes of poetry between the years of 1917 and 1958. So prolific. Famous in her lifetime. Not so much now. So this poem is by Margaret, and it's called Homes. The lamplights shaded rose on couch and chair and wall. The drowsy book let fall. The children's heads bent close in some deep argument. The kitten, sleepy curled, sure of our good intent. The hearth fire's crackling glow. His step that crisps the snow, his laughing kiss, wind cold. Only the very old gifts that the night star brings. Dear homely evening things, dear things of all the world. And yet my throat locks tight. Somewhere, far off, I know, are ashes on red snow that were a home last night. I was surprised when I started Googling for all this stuff. I was surprised there don't seem to be any anthologies of the Pulitzer Prize poets. There is a wonderful webpage that you can find from the Pulitzer organization that details all the poets and everything. No anthology yet. You and I should write one. This next poet is Edwin Arlington Robinson. He was honored. Actually, see, they didn't. After 1919, it took them 2 or 3 years before they said, "Oh, let's make it a regular category." So, in 1923, Edwin Arlington Robinson was honored. He was born in Maine. A lot of these folks were born in Maine for some reason. He disliked his name, and he always signed himself as E.A. I can relate to that. I always signed myself as G.E. He attended Harvard for a couple of years as a B student, and then eventually dropped out. He moved to New York, where he became an impoverished poet, and slowly became very popular. Now, as he became popular, people started talking about him and sharing him with other people. One of those readers was a fellow named Kermit, who was the son of Theodore Roosevelt, who happened to be president at the time. So when Theodore Roosevelt found out that his son really liked this poetry and then read it and really liked it, he made it possible for Robinson to have a job as a writer at the New York Customs Office. I love that story. I don't know, it's just, so many of these poets are like professors or editors, and that's all well fine and good, but it's nice to think that some of them were bricklayers and customs officers, It just makes me feel... Someone described him as being more artful than Hardy, more coy than Frost, and a brilliant sonneteer, and I totally agree. This is an example of one of his poems the long race. Up the old hill to the old house again, where 50 years ago a friend was young, who should be waiting somewhere there among old things that least remembered, most remain. He toiled on with a pleasure that was pain, to think how soon asunder would be flung the curtain half a century had hung between the two ambitions they had slain. They dredged an hour for words, and then were done. Goodbye. You have the same old weather vane, your little horse that's always on the run. All the way down, back to the next train, down the old hill to the old road again. It seemed as if the little horse had won. Edwin Arlington Robinson. At this point, I would like to welcome Tom, who will read some more of our poems.
Agnes Vincent Millay was born in 1892 in Maine. Her middle name, St. Vincent, derives from St. Vincent's Hospital in New York, where her uncle's life had been saved just before her birth. She attended Vassar and lived much of her life in New York. And this poem is from the Ballad of the Harp Weaver. It's an untitled sonnet, and you may remember her for that fabulous poem. We spent midnight back and forth upon the ferry. Very, very popular in her time. What lips my lips have kissed, and where and why I have forgotten. And what arms have lain under my head till morning. But the rain is full of ghosts tonight, that tap and sigh upon the glass and listen for reply. And in my heart there stirs a quiet pain for unremembered lads that not again will turn to me at midnight with a cry. Thus, in the winter, stands the lonely tree, nor knows what birds have vanished one by one, yet knows it bows more silent than before. I cannot say what loves have come and gone. I only know that summer sang in me a little while, that in me sings no more. Now, Amy Lawrence, you may know as Amy Lowell, born in 1874 in Massachusetts, never attended college because her family did not consider that proper for a woman. However, she was an avid reader, socialite, and traveler. Started writing poetry in 1902 and won the Pulitzer Prize 24 years later. This is a brief but wonderful poem called What's O'Clock? Vespers. Last night, at sunset, the foxgloves were like tall altar candles. Could I have lifted you to the roof of the greenhouse, my dear, I should have understood their pain. Now the next poet, whoa, well, I have never heard of her, but Lady Speyer, or Leonora Speyer, born in 1872, American poet and violinist, born in Washington, D.C., daughter of Count Ferdinand van Stosch of Mass and Julia Scheer, who was a writer. Studied music in Europe, where she lived until 1915, then moved to New York. And this is from one of her most famous books called Bright Ambush. Wait a minute. Where did it go? Whoop. It leaked away. No. From one of her famous books called Fiddler's Farewell. Spring Cowardice. I am afraid to go into the woods. I fear the trees and their mad green moods. I fear the breezes that pull at my sleeves, the creeping arbutus beneath the leaves, and that brook that mocks me with wild, wet words. I stumble and fall, the voice of birds. Think of the terror of those swift showers. Think of the meadows of fierce-eyed flowers and the little things with sudden wings that buzz about me and dash and dart waiting to break my heart. Winter, hide me in your kindness now. I'm a coward. Coward. I know.
We are endeavoring to read these poets more or less in the order in which they were honored by the Pulitzer Prize. That poem that Tom just read, I believe, was honored in 1927. This one is from 1930. We're doing a span of poetry from 1918 through 1943. Basically the first 25 years of the Pulitzer Prize. It's gone on for another 70 years. I'm pleased to say that not all of those that are honored are dead. There's actually a few that are living. Again, I encourage you to go Google it up and look at the webpage and see what's out there. What is the purpose of contest? Why do it? People put money up, like Mr. Pulitzer. People of the Austin community, the Austin Poetry Society is a great example, put up funds, establish categories, people submit their work. We find panels or judges to look at the work and decide which is the best of the best. People are given sometimes money, esteem, reputation, fame. Is that it? Is that what we're supposed to be doing? Is that the only purpose for contest? To me, I think, we get very focused on the activity, and I myself, I got to tell you, Tom, I've lost count of how many times I've entered contests in the Austin Poetry Society.
I've lost more.
Yes, you've lost more than I have, but I've lost a lot. In 30 years, I've probably won 7 or 8 times. Those were moments of elation for me. Was that the purpose? Moments of elation? Moments of defeat? Is that the purpose, to discourage so many others? Is that the reason? At some point, I think maybe that we as a society instinctively know that we want to encourage people. We want to encourage people to strive. That's one thing that contests do. The current Pulitzer Prizes, if you go to the webpage, they'll not only show you who the winners are, they'll show you who the runners-up are. So it's one way of encouraging artists to strive. It's also a way of letting society know who, at the time, represents what we feel is the measure of best at the time for that category, for that moment. Of these poets that we're reading, some are known and a whole bunch are not. Isn't it interesting that people that are well known in their lifetime and not known now? Some are still known. I just think it's very interesting. Food for thought. On with the show. This next poet his name is Conrad Potter Aiken. He was from a respectable family, a wealthy family in Savannah, Georgia. I'm going to read this story because it's so bizarre. Respectable family, well-to-do. His father was a respected physician who, for no apparent reason, became increasingly unpredictable and violent. And one early morning in February in 1901, he murdered his wife and killed himself. His son, Conrad, was in the house, heard the shots, and found the body. At the age of 11, he was adopted by an aunt in Massachusetts. He went on to attend Harvard, where he edited The Advocate with T.S. Eliot. Became lifelong friends. He was a poet and novelist throughout his life, and he lived in England for many years before returning to Savannah. This poem is called Asphalt. Light your cigarette, then, in this shadow, and talk to her, your arm engaged with hers. Heavily over your head, the eaten maple in the dead air of August strains and stirs. Her stone-white face in the lamplight turns toward you, darkly, with time-dark eyes. She questions you. whether this universe is what she thinks it is, simple and passionate and profound and true, or whether, as with a sound of dim disaster, a plaintive music brought to a huddled fall, some ancient treachery slides through the heart of things, the last star falling, seen from the utmost wall. And you, what sinister, far reserves of laughter, what understandings, remote, perplexed, remain unguessed forever by her, who is your victim, victim of whom you too are victim again? Come, scholar and also an amateur composer and a student of music. Hillier believed that poetry and music are inseparable. Isn't that great?
Yeah.
Here's to Robert Hillier, who I've never heard of before. And here's one of his poems. He was honored with the Pulitzer Prize in 1934. And this poem is called A Voice in the Night. That echo melting away in its own wistfulness. A woman's voice? A child hurt in a play? The voice retreating from the stage of starlight into the wings of night. Finale of hush as the heart dies. Dies in a play? Or dies in the breast following the echo beyond life? What charm, what sweetness, what divine despair has for an instant made me feel again, who have lain so long alone in the grave of the world? I think that's Robert Skull down there, Tom, I believe.
Hi, Bob.
Hello, Bob.
Hey, Bob.
All right. I think it's time.
Yeah.
Now it's time for Tom and I to attempt to
As you wish.
perform together.
Together.
So please welcome Tom and Garrett. This next poet was honored in 1935. She was born in 1911. She's like the youngest winner of the Pulitzer Prize at the age of 24. I mean, she's like the youngest.
Who is she related to?
Well, she is the great granddaughter of Percy Shelley.
How about that?
How about that?
Yeah.
We're assuming that he had no other granddaughters or children or anything like that, but
No,
still
no.
pretty darn cool.
Yeah.
She was born in Seattle. She attended the University of Washington. Nice to know that not all the poets went to Harvard. She traveled to Asia. She lived mostly in Washington, D.C. and New York. Her first poetry was published when she was 16. She was sponsored by a California poet named George Sterling. I haven't heard of him either. But that is a reminder of the importance of encouraging others. Contests do that, but you can also encourage others by buying their books or saying a kind word or encouraging them to do something that they wouldn't have done before. George Sterling, whoever he was, encouraged Audrey Werdeman, who then won the Pulitzer Prize.
At the age of?
24.
Youngest.
Ever.
Pretty cool. This is from her book, Bright Ambush, and the poem is entitled Love's Instant. I held an instant in my hands, the thing that no one understands, the thing most perfect and complete, most finely fashioned and most fleet.
And of myself I let it go, being afraid to hold it so, being afraid that overmuch it would be tarnished at my touch.
It was as though, thus caught and mine, a flying fish, a silver line with wings of gauze grown softer still, lay in my hands and at my will. And of my will it was set free and plunged like moonlight in the sea.
And though I surely know if I should prison beauty, it would die. And though I know that flying fish are sheathed with subtle spines, I wish that somewhere, someday, I could hold the ice-thin wonder, silver cold, until its thorny filigree had pierced my hands and wounded me.
And I would chance that beauty, dying, were lovelier still, and it were flying. Thank you. Tom, I think you should stay up here for a while.
Sure, you got those bios there?
Is that yours?
Yeah, it's mine.
Well, what am I reading from?
You're reading from yours too.
Oh, okay. I'm not too confused.
No, you're perfectly fine.
All right, we'll leave this up here,
Okay, thank you.
if you would.
So, a name like Coppin deserves some respect, right? Well, whether we respect or not, he's the next poet. And born in 1892, writer, poet, professor, born in Maine, another one, earned degrees at Princeton and Oxford, best known as the author of more than 36 works of literature, poetry, and history, a lifelong visual artist who illustrated many of his own books in black and white drawings. And this poem is so easy, you know, just very, very, it's from Strange Holiness, and the title is Old Blue. Old Blue was tough, as steers can be. He could walk from Texas to eternity. Mean eye, mean horn, bony as death. He could walk the coyotes out of breath. Bronze at his nose, iron at his tail. Each year he walked the Chisholm Trail. San Antonio to Kansas or bust. He churned 3 long states into dust. 800 miles he led the van. He wore out wolves, dust storms, and man. He led the Longhorns to the Abilene Trail, and he alone came home again. Now here's the shock. Here's a Russian name. How's a Russian doing? It's a Pulitzer Prize winner, and what's this country coming to? Maya Zazarenska, born in 1902, born in Russia. Family immigrated to the United States when she was 8 and lived in New York. Like many immigrants, she worked in the clothing factory during the day, able to attend night high school. Won a scholarship, attended colleges in Indiana and Wisconsin, wrote 8 volumes of poetry, and was also an editor. And this is from her collection, Cold Morning Sky. It's called The Runaway. See if you like this. Silent and stealthy days that hour by hour spring up unnoticed as a flower in summer grass. And like a breath, light, a feather, make my world's weather. I wish to weave a garland, deep and rare, to wear upon my hair, or a long chain, intricate, strong and fine, to sound through stillness and to shine, to bind the intangible days that so efface themselves with me and run so dull a pace. Oh, they have run, they have gone, nor have they set their seal of vast regret upon that wide and echoing door that opening opens, shuts and sounds no more. How to pursue life's runaway. Let go. Forgo the moons and waters of the mind. Today is all that you shall find. Now my last little contribution is, those people in Texas have 3 names, you know, like little Stanley Gardner and all that. This is John Gould Fletcher, born in Little Rock, Arkansas. Little Rock, Pebble, and attended Harvard, so he then dropped out. That's a good point. lived in Europe, associated with Amy Lowell, who you heard before, Ezra Pound, and other imagists. Returned to Little Rock for the rest of his life, so he often traveled to New York and the Southwest, which is an Arizona poem, Rain in the Desert, from his selected poems. The huge red-buttressed mesa over yonder is merely a far-off temple where the sleepy sun is burning its altar fires of pinon and toyon for the day. The old priests sleep white-shrouded. Their pottery, whistles, lie beside them, the prayer sticks closely feathered. On every mummied face there glows a smile, The sun is rolling slowly beneath the sluggish folds of the sky serpents, coiling, uncoiling, blue-black, spark with fires. The old dead priests feel in the thin dried earth that is heaped about them, above the smell of scorching, oozing pinon, the acrid smell of rain. And now the showers surround the mesa like a troop of silver dancers, shaking their rattles, stamping, chanting, roaring, whirling, extinguishing the last red wisp of light.
Wasn't that cool?
Yeah.
It's fun to listen to Tom read because it isn't just the poet that we're hearing, it's two poets that we're hearing. Love that. So cool. All right. Just a few more. Get all my paperwork in order here. Got way too much paper here. Yeah, that's like my house. All right. This poet was honored in 19-something. 1942.
No, 1940, Mark Van Doren.
Oh, no, you're getting ahead.
I'm ahead?
Yeah, okay. We did rehearse. You just don't know. The next one I'm going to do.
Yeah.
I'm going to say Mark.
Oh, it's surprise.
Yeah, surprise. Yeah. So William Rose Benet, born February 1886 in Brooklyn, New York. Hey, Brooklyn. Yeah, that's right. And is the older brother of Stephen Vincent Benet, who won Pulitzer Prizes also. His older brother, I think, won at least 2 Pulitzer Prizes. So it's interesting. The Benet family does well in the Pulitzers. William attended Yale and then he started the Saturday Review of Literature and was the lifelong editor and contributor. That's pretty cool. He also is the author of the Reader's Encyclopedia, An American Guide to World Literature. This poem, oh my gosh, when I first looked at it, I thought, how do you read a poem? Isn't that a question?
Yeah, it is.
I think all of us who, share our work with others are faced with that conundrum. Do you get up and do the same kind of tone every time? If it's written by somebody else, how do you get inside what they're doing? How do you, are you doing what they would have done, or doing what all that stuff? How do you read a poem? How do you perform a poem? And even more interesting is the question of how do you hear a poem? How do you receive it? Sometimes do you remember Catherine Gann? Catherine Gann was an old member of the Austin Poetry Society. She would come to Readings of the Past Poetry Project with her blind daughter, and the two of them would sit in the front row, and they would both keep their eyes closed, and they would respond by smiling and glowing. That's pretty awesome. Sometimes people would laugh, which is always a wonderful way of getting some energy back. Sometimes people would grunt, like, oh yeah. And a few of my friends appeared to be making out their grocery list. Many different ways of responding, receiving the work, giving energy back. It's a dual relationship that we have here when we perform. The audience is a part of the performance. So how do you receive the poetry? So with no pressure, I will now read Mad Blake by William Rose Benet. Blake saw a treeful of angels at Peckham Rye, and his hands could lay hold on the tiger's terrible heart. Blake knew how deep is hell and heaven how high, and could build the universe from one tiny part. Blake heard the asides of God, as with furrowed brow he sifts the star streams between the then and the now in vast infant sagacity brooding, and infinite grace. Infants, shining serene on his simple, benignant face. Blake was mad, they say, and space's Pandora box loosed its wonders upon him. Devils, but angels indeed. I, they say, am sane, but no key of mine unlocks one lock of one gate wherethrough heaven's glory is freed. And I stand and I hold my breath, day long, year long, out of comfort and easy dreaming, evermore starting, awake, yearning beyond all sanity for some echo of that song of songs that was sung to the soul of the madman, Blake. Thank you, Mr. Benet. This poet was recognized with the Pulitzer Prize in 1943. He also won the prize in 1924, 1931, and 1937. He is the most honored of the poets to have received the Pulitzer Prize. No, I don't believe anyone else received it 4 times. He was born in San Francisco. His family moved to Massachusetts where he was 11. He attended Dartmouth for 2 months and also Harvard for a couple of years and dropped out. That seems to be important. His grandfather bought him and his wife a farm in New Hampshire where he worked for 9 years before he began his calling as a poet. Among his many honors, including the Pulitzer Prize, he read a poem at Kennedy's inauguration, and his name is Robert Lee Frost. Appropriately enough, this poem, which is from his volume A Further Range, is entitled My November Guest. My sorrow, when she's here with me, thinks these dark days of autumn rain are beautiful as days can be. She loves the bare, the withered tree. She walks the sodden pasture lane. Her pleasure will not let me stay. She talks and I am fain to list. She's glad the birds are gone away. She's glad her simple worsted gray is silver now with clinging mist. The desolate, deserted trees, the faded earth, the heavy sky, the beauties she so truly sees, she thinks I have no eye for these and vexes me for reasons why. Not yesterday I learned to know the love of bare November days before the coming of the snow. But it were vain to tell her so, and they are better for her praise. One more poem, and I took them a little out of order, confusing Tom. This gentleman was honored with the Pulitzer Prize in 1940. Before I read it, I would like to express my gratitude to the Baha'i Center for hosting expressions and making this creative time together possible. So thank you to the Baha'i Center. My thanks to Tom for being a part of this presentation, for always encouraging poets. He has a great, generous heart, and thank you so very much, Tom. And then finally, my thanks to you, the audience, who have been a part of this reading, and thank you for the great energy that you've given to both of us and to these poets. And if you have any questions about these poets, please talk to us during the break, or I'll give you my email address or whatever, and I'll be happy to give you more information about these wonderful people. So, Mark Van Doren, born in 1894, was born in Hope, Illinois. He attended Columbia University and then joined their faculty. In addition to being a professor and a poet, he was a writer, a scholar, and a critic. This poem is called Farewell and Thanksgiving. Whatever I have left unsaid when I am dead, O Muse, forgive me. You are always there, like light, like air. Those great good things of which the least bird sings, so why not I? Yet thank you, even then, sweet muse. Amen.
Harrison Mark, House Poetry Project, generous, gregarious, and wonderful host. He's kept that project going over many years, and we hope to do two other presentations that we were talking about in rehearsal. One is Australian poets that no one knows about, and the other one was what?
We'll do Edwin Arlington Robinson.
Because he loved Edward Arlington Robinson, and I don't understand Edward Arlington. Anyone with three names confuses me. Just why in Texas, Robert Lee, and I think
but aren't you Tom O. Joy?
That was 3 years ago, brother.
Oh no.
Oh yeah, things have changed.
Oh.
Yeah, tonight. It's all over. But now the important part.
Keeping up.
You've heard the past. You are the future. So would you please do whatever you want, one poem at a time, so we can hear you, and we have copies of the poems that we did, if you would like any copies of the poems, so that you can peruse at length why these Pulitzer Prize winners were so efficacious in their time and on our bones. But, oh living people, please come on up and steal a microphone. This night is now yours.
Have you ever noticed how all the poets are getting irritatingly older all the time? So I wrote a poem about that.
State your name, please.
My name is Peter Benford. You've all heard of me. And the poem is called Time the Riddler, which incidentally is the very best piece of poetry I ever wrote, the title, Time the Riddler. Looking back as the body ages, along the way sometimes courageous, when strength and passion turned my pages, when love and bonding were my wages. Life goes on, the body grows old, while the soul is golden attitude, in silence sensing life unfold, in ecstasy of gratitude. Not meat and bones, just meat and bones, not self. That's aging. Not some kind of war I'm waging. No, keep an eye on where we're going. No war, just thankful for the growing. Life goes on, with or without me. Lonely darkness draped about me. Chilly silence stirs the breeze. Chilly blows the scent of freeze. Is the stillness gentle peace, the long-awaited, pointed, promised plenty? When will he come, bringing release? Time, the riddler, leaves us empty. Life goes on. The law is the tree, saying simply, each and all are free. From roots to fruits, the hierarchy, live you then thus, in harmony. The more years I look back on, the more life I look forward to.
Hi, good evening. I just came from Bookwoman.
Who are you?
Oh, I am Linda Marie. 3 names. Linda Marie Casa. Okay. And I just want to say that this dress is from Pakistan. I found it at Goodwill, and it helped me write my poem about Malala. Malala. You know, Malala, the young girl from
And you wear
Pakistan.
it. And you wear it well.
Thank you. Malala. Malala glows with enlightened years of consciousness behind eyes and ears. Shot in the face for her thirst to learn, but lived to be a consecrated verb. Multiple faces of femicide, shaped by grisly hate, old matricide. From right here and now to Pakistan, war on woman more than Taliban. Feminine mind, female of her time, woman's cyclical spirit alive, by teenage girl of 16 years old. The daughter I never had or got to hold. She is everyone's daughter of the world's soul. To carry in our hearts hopes, visions, and dreams of feminine learning, loving, living, free. Malala, brilliant astonishment, maiden of 21st century.
Yeah.
Yep. Somebody. Oh, there we go.
I guess they really are all too old.
You may remember me,
Who are you?
I was just Peter Benford. You're the same name, sorry. This one is called A Few Breaths Ahead. Life, death, as you deal the next hand, your expression shows simple and bland, revealing nothing of what cards may fall, or of what play you may choose to call. True, I had promising work in hand, I would be unhappy to disband, but if it is come, my time, my day, then I will move on, not plead to delay. For when I step in through your open door, the gloom will change to brilliance, I'm sure, the fear dissolve, and with a cheerful heart, I'll count the blessings brought for the new start. So long I watched the peaceful years roll by. Now I breathlessly see the hasty decades fly. Sons, daughters, don't grieve, don't feel blue. The old folks are just breaths ahead of you. Well, there are no beginnings, no endings. Such do not exist. They cannot be controlled. Aspiration forms process, resulting in progress. We each participate in our own timing. This is fundamental. The natural orders, the true gifts are the moments, each its own miracle. By the millions, they keep coming and coming. But don't waste them. Hurry, they're getting away.
Good evening, friends.
Good evening.
I'm Magic Chat, ATX. I'm here to represent the smallest state of Rhode Island, totally without permission. So this is fresh. I wrote this on the eve of Halloween. It's called The Endless Conundrums. The Endless Conundrums, war fends off enemies and intruders. War offers opportunities for booty. To the victor goes the spoils. Weapons cost treasure. Corporations are enriched. People need jobs and incomes. Resources are exploited. We burn fossil fuels. We burn through money. We burn cities and buildings. We end thousands of lives We worry about trees. We fret over McNuggets. We let warmongers charge wars on credit cards. Meanwhile, the sun shines, and energy comes down from the sky, and winds blow free. Windmills are turning. Children are going without food. Hunger overseas and in our schools. The rich have more wealth than all the kings. History awaits us to revisit the future we envision. Meanwhile, we argue on Facebook. Thank you.
I'm Linda Gordon. Thank you. And I develop songs that I sing as I drive in my car, and the more I sing my songs, the happier I get. So and it's really an honor to be able to share my songs with somebody else. Seek and ye shall find. Seek and ye shall find. Knock and the door shall be open to you. Ask and know it shall be given. These promises have been given to you. Pray with faith every day. Pray and expect to receive. Pray and know that you are heard. Then wait for the mountains to move. Seek and ye shall find. Knock and the door shall be open to you. Ask and know it shall be given. These promises have been given to you. Search for the pearl of great price. Search forgetting all else. Sweep through the clutter of your life till you find the pearl of great price. Seek and ye shall find. Knock and the door shall be open to you. Ask and know it shall be given. These promises have been given to you. These promises have been given to you.
Harrison is an extraordinary generous soul, and we hope to have a project of Australian poets. This is a book that just came out from Australia like 24 hours ago. It's called Let the Sea Find Its Edges, and it's got about poets from all around the world, but about 20 Australian poets, and also our Rick Williams, who used to do the literary column. And I wrote the title poem, and it's called, of course, Let the Sea Find Its Edges. Water sloshes in my belly, wishing release. As soon as free rushes through earth to sea, moon calls me. I follow tides to some wavered beach, slap and return, learn movement and form, time as a measure of itself alone. Stones later, with this brief life's barometer, I drink ocean, sand, salt as soda and as cola. Sugar dissolves, salt sweats deserts. I am this planet.
Hi, Vivian.
This poem came about, I have Angela, your guy, Ratliff, to thank for it. She gave us a workshop a couple of weeks ago, so it's fresh off the press. I haven't read it yet. And it's inspired by Ellen Bryant Boyd, her poem, My Mother. And so here, my mother. My mother. My timid mother loved poetry, sunshine, big hats, pored over the Sears, Allen, Montgomery Ward's catalog for pretty dresses and shoes for her girls, kept a fresh apron on a hook by the wood-burning stove, and a keen eye on the dirt road, lest her lest mother-in-law pay a visit. Kept a keen eye. I'm sorry I said that one, haven't I? Maybe I better read this thing. I thought I had memorized it. My mother, my timid mother, loved poetry, sunshine, big hats. Poured through the Sears, Alden, Montgomery Ward's catalogs for pretty dresses, shoes for her girls, kept a fresh apron on a hook by the wood-burning stove, and a keen eye on the dirt road for the surprise visit by mother-in-law. She'd hum softly as she made ready for the occasional overnight stay at her mother's place. She could stuff a change of clothes for each of her three step girls, and a dozen or more diapers in 2 soft mochilas the girls would carry. After an early breakfast the next morning, we were on our way. She recited poetry, and we all sang over the river and through the woods to grandmother's house and road. As we crossed fields and fences, she'd reach out a hand to steady us as we cavorted, sometimes tripped, going up, then down, the many fun to climb, hand-hewn wooden stiles. About halfway there, she'd sit on a warm rock to nurse the baby. She and Mama Grande hugging, cooing, talking at the same time. Mira, qué bonita la niña. ¿Cómo estás, Mama? Their toothy smiles like flashes of soft lightning. My mother with her mother. My mother and her mother, picking green beans, gathering corn, dandelion, roots and all to dry for winter tea. Heated water for the wash, cooked a thick starch for Mama Grande's curtains. In the bedroom, Mother uses a light touch to dust, crepe paper flowers, lace, St. Jude, El Sagrado Corazón, the Virgin and Child crowding Mama Grande's altarcito, an ornate niche done in soft blue calamine and trimmed in glistening Tierra Maria. The night that Mama Grande died, my mother's star went dark. Yet she dried her tears, kept on loving us, went into fast mode, kept cleaning, sweeping, mopping, cooking, making jam. She kept on making beds, kept on having children. Bent over a washboard, she kept on scrubbing, bleaching, rinsing, bluing diapers. kept on bringing out, hanging, drying, folding, pinning, and unpinning diapers. Overwhelmed by the loss of her mother and the long absences of a working husband, plus the care of our then 7 children, she who loved poetry never had a minute, much less a room to call her own. My mother allegedly had an illicit love affair while husband was away. I pray, fervently, I pray that before she died, my mother, my young mother, had her day.
I have one in tandem to follow Lydia's poem, which is just nicely performed for us about her parent. This is about a trip I took. I took a recent trip, some of you know, back to Rhode Island last week. A short visit with the family. I have elder parents, and yes, but they still remember me. I wrote this, not this fall, but last fall, when I went up to visit, and I really wrote it to myself so that I could remember when I look at it in the future, you know, what that trip was like. And I don't think I ever shared this before. Whoops, somebody's trying to call. It's an 800 number. Back home again. I feel trapped sometimes in my own world here. Back in Rhode Island, that is. The old shell of me is still welcome, remembrance to others. My parents remember me, but they're lost for words after hello. What do you do, Father asks, while Mom separates pieces of her puzzle. As if I was there with them every day, barely paying attention to my sudden presence. Well, how do I explain something that they could never imagine? Art, poetry, music. In a place that they've never been, nor will ever see. Texas, 2,000 miles away. Could be Mars. But they take comfort in their routines and wait. My soul has grown new shoots where the limbs were pruned, and I no longer fit back in that old skin, nor do I wish to do so. Everywhere I visit is like a graveyard of memories. My new loves are not close by me now, and the old ones are exchanging pleasantries now. But I feel needed here in ways I wish I could escape. So, how do you feel when you visit your past? Thank you.
I really want to share this. There's only 2 copies of this in the United States. The other one's with Rick Williams, and it just came out, like fresh now. And Garrison, I've been thinking about the Australian one. For 40,000 years, there was oral poetry, and it was memorized. It was indigenous people. Then the white peril came, and there was colonial poetry, forced rhyme, end-stop rhyme, slavery. And then there was an outbreak of poetry in the 1890s during the gold rush time, and of which you may be aware of the 2 forces we talked about, the city poetry done by Henry Lawson and the Myth of the Outback by Banjo Paterson. And that died after the Bulletin, which was the magazine that printed their poetry, largely went out of circulation. But in the 1930s, there was another outbreak of people's poetry called C.J. Dennis, Poems of a Sentimental Bloke, which is done the Australian Cockney style. The whole thing is, and that was made into a movie, a black and white movie, really, really well done. A lot of movies have been made of Banjo Paterson's poetry, and a lot of movies have been made of poets and about poets in Australia because it's Irish and attempts to have a republic, which still hasn't happened. Which leads me to the poets in this book, who are all living alive in an email contact by poetry tennis every day, sending out poems to each other and responding, and that's why this book occurred. So this is my response to what's essential. Must have time for breath, slows death, space for distance, assists birth, energy to evacuate and stimulate, others to validate, authenticate, challenge and confront, paths to build upon, extend, deny, awareness, fog, forget, covers all who fall, intelligence to seek, to find, to value, to release, empathy to be within a field of willing consciousness, clarity to call a spade, a rose and dig it, imagination to see beyond feelings, to feel within visions more, for this is never all, could never be so limiting nor limited on.
My name. This is
Your
your
mic.
mic.
It's your mic.
My mic.
That's
Yours.
all right. Feel free, Mike.
My name is G.E. Martin. I composed this haiku recently. Joy is a lantern that illuminates the face. Your beautiful smile.
Ah, yeah. Here's Ralph. Share your stories.
On the way here tonight, it was really interesting. I was listening to KMFA, and they did a poem by W.H. Auden that Benjamin Britten set to music.
Wow.
Benjamin Britten was a very prolific composer. I didn't realize, first of all, he had a very long life, and he had at least 4 or 5 periods of musical composition during his lifetime. And each of them is a little bit different from what we had before, or what he did before. I didn't really have a poem specifically for the Pulitzer reading, but I thought
This is one of the poems that I wrote during a very painful, dark time of my life. These poems I would read over and over, and they were really my salvation. They helped me gain perspective and be able to go on with my life. This one is called Moving On. Sometimes in the course of a river there are whirlpools and treacherous rapids, or huge waterfalls with churning water. But gradually the river resumes its calm, rhythmic flow to the sea to fulfill its destiny. Once in the course of my life, I seemed helpless and at the mercy of forces outside my control. I was tossed and battered, in shock and in pain, my emotions like whirlpools, like rapids, depression, anger, and fear alternating, and always the deprivation and pain. It seemed it would last forever and that all I could do was survive. And yes, survive I did, and I'm stronger for it, and I've chosen to learn and to grow, not to get stuck in the past or in nursing resentments, but to gradually resume the flow, the rhythmic, beautiful flow of my life. I won't forbid painful memories or push back feelings when they need to be expressed. But I know my destiny is to move on, not to get stuck in the past or to fear the future, but to flow in the beautiful present to the pulse of the rhythm of life.
is being held hostage by the crowd of MFA granting colleges, of which there are about 117 in the country. You talk about a cottage industry that's building up around a master's degree behind your name in order to be taken seriously as a poet or a writer in this country. It's going so far that it's becoming a PhD program. So I think that groups like ours and the Austin Poetry Society and all the other local and state poetry societies have a real job to do to keep poetry and literature going outside of that Great, thank you. That's great.
Academic race.
Well, this is a little bit more, okay, so now I'm off the box. This is a little bit sort of Halloween and sort of just an idea that I've been experimenting with. Okay. Oh, yes. Okay, sorry. I should have really thought of that myself.
Wouldn't make any difference, really.
Okay, this is called Ruin. Windblown. Oh, this. I was thinking of a term, of a form called Haibun, which you use a mix of poetry and prose. Okay, so again, ruin. Wind-blown sand invades the concrete chamber, grinds patiently at domes. Within the ruin, artifacts of glass, of tools, their use known only to the men and women in laboratory coats, the one whose ghosts now roam on silent desert paths. You cannot run, you cannot hide. We know what's going on inside. We come from darkness, we bring distress. Accident, not time, brought about this end. This was a containment dome, until one day it failed its task, became a monument for the gods of war, man's urge to self-destruct, a place to hide our dark intentions. Beyond, where deeper desert lies, a moonscape, craters formed by detonations done at night, as though to keep from angel eyes our probes. The sand soft glow beneath the moon changed to daytime, bright as noon. You could not hope to have us bless a work that gave the universe such stress. The desert is a fine and quiet place, much like the grave about which Byron wrote. Here the loudest sounds are gusts of winds whispering through the tufts of grass, or now and then a bird seeking out some other of his kind, as though their bones might rise like phoenixes to play and chatter in the morning air. 2 million years, perhaps, the gods will let another genus roam these sands. I do not think there'll be anything like us.
What Garrison said about encouraging people.
I used to run open houses for homeless people, and I lost a few homes because of that. And one of the people in my home, when he had a breakdown, was the editor of this. That was 30 years ago. And this is a preface, and I really, as to why we do this. I am writing this as you are reading these words. There is nothing the world can offer that matters more to me this moment than having your attention. I am alive, and I seek to know you. Time puts on its costume and dances, and my sonnets are both the back row of the audience and bit players in the chorus. We sing together, you and me, since thought sings, both with words and ineffably. The soundtrack of my life is sung by sinners and demons, saints and angels, and nowadays I listen in my deafness. I am deaf and blind, and any prescience in this book is no more, no less than the next teaspoonful of baby food I am fed. Sheila Hetty, a wiser one than I am, has written, Friendship is, for many of us, the deepest love we will ever experience. This strikes me as at once hopeful, then hopeless, then hopeful again, until I realize its truth. There is no randomness of being. The order of the first part of the book is as random as the second part, because before I was born, I knew I was to know you as a friend, every writer featured here. May you enjoy the works of my friends, accepting none, they are writers, they are souls worthy of your attention. As for my sonnets, I invite you to read them and thereby become acquainted with me too. I am increasingly mute upon this earth, but for now I still speak. Perhaps some of my sonnets might be admitted into your own conversations. Michael Fitzgerald Clarke, Townsville, October 2013. So the book is 100 sonnets for his friends and from his friends. And as you know, poetry is a form of healing. This is one he wrote for me. And music makes it much better. So here we go. Heal your eyes by gazing at the sky. Fashion sonnets from clouds. And when clouds have gone, accept time will go to come back wearing other cloaks. Digest slowly your weakness, then know it as dust. And with each heartbeat, listen to wood, to stone. I believe a man who makes crop circles into living spheres. I believe him as I know him. Above the conflicts of people, he throws confetti down upon us, marrying us all to verities before time, younger than the next blink of your eyes. Do you often notice your eyes blink? Poetry is here, gone, quintessential. Michael Fitzgerald Clarke.
It's called leaving, breaking up. Don't bother creeping around, because I won't be sleeping. Take what you want. There ain't much here worth keeping. We realize that it's time. We've just got to be going. Drifted apart. That's the hell of the thing about growing. Look back, see the road we've left, littered with diamonds and gold. Looking forward, it's blank. Just realizing I've really grown old. But the joy you brought into my life since we first met is the priceless commodity. Old age can't make me forget.
PJ! Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear PJ. Happy birthday to you. You look like death warmed over. What a happy death.
I don't know how this is going to come through the microphone.
Lift it just
Sit down beside your brother here.
Lift it just a little bit.
Member of the family, officer.
No, lift your mask a little bit. Yeah. So we can hear you more.
Oh, okay.
Can't hear you. Or speak loud.
Those are pictures.
Hmm.
This better?
Yeah.
This better?
Yep.
Yeah. Good.
Okay.
Yes.
I didn't know we were going to do round robin. Hi, I'm TJ the Rainbow Poet. I love Halloween. I love rainbows. And I love Day of the Dead, which is this getup, combination thereof. And so I've been celebrating these 3 holidays, including my birthday, for almost like 2 weeks, kind of, sort of, a day here, a day there. And boy, this certainly attracts some strange attention. This is the first time I'm trying to speak through this thing. I did make it. Day of the Dead, and past poets, dead ones, usually. I was going to read Tahrir this evening, who is a Baha'i hero, and lady hero. I don't like the word hero. Hero, male, female, hero. So she was, in the early days of Baha'i faith, a follower of Baha'u'llah, the main star, the main hero of the Baha'i faith. And she was a poet. And she wrote awesome, beautiful poetry. She was a extremely intelligent woman who was fortunate enough to be educated in those days, in the mid-1800s, is when she lived. And Baha'u'llah, as the center of the Baha'i faith, was going about teaching and sharing and living and giving and all these things, and she was a follower. And he set her up as an example, saying, this thing about the veil, this was in the Middle East back then, and he set her up as an example. The days of this custom is over. This is a horrible thing for women to have to endure. So he ordered her to stand up and remove her veil at one of these meetings where there are, many, hundreds of followers there in the audience or in the presence of Baha'u'llah. And of course, as a person who loves the follower of Baha'u'llah, respectfully, lover of Baha'u'llah, she got up and did what he said because she knew that she trusted him and that he had an honorable cause behind it. So she did stand up in front of all these people, which are obviously, usually, mostly male in this country at that time, which very similar to how they're living these days, without the electricity and things like that. She removed her veil, and the audience was appalled. I don't want to say audience, I would say gathered people in the vicinity. And one of the men there was so upset that he got up and shouted something horrifying that this was awful, and he took his knife and slit her neck right there, right in front of everybody. So that is how she is a hero. And in those days, and they're still wearing veils. We have a book by Tahrir out there somewhere, but I was trying to hurry up and find it, and of course I never find anything when I try to hurry up and find it. And it could be also that we're out of them right now. But, so what I did was I got one of our Baha'i books, Veils and Words, and this one poem in here by Ferzanch Delani, pardon my English, I'm going to read that, and it's one of the poems in here among the many stories that are describing what it's like to live behind the veil. Are you still hearing me okay, or is it too muffled?
It's okay.
All righty.
Better.
There we go, all right. There. I think about it, and yet I know I'll never be able to leave this cage. Even if the warden should let me go, I've lost the strength to fly away. Every morning from behind these bars, my child's eyes smile at me as I start to sing. His kissing lips near mine. God, if I need to fly one day from behind these silent bars, how will I answer this child's wet eyes? Let me be of a captive bird. Thank you. Honoring past poets that have passed. Deb Akers, one of our Austin heroes. I have chosen selections from her book by her collections by her husband. What's his name again? Donald L. Akers. So, on the subject of dead, I'm going to start with dreaming of the dead. It is evening. It is raining. From the other side of the pane, your face and hands appear so clear in the waning light. Your hands pressed hard against this steaming glass. I so want to let you in, to dry your face, to comb your hair, to feed you soup, to warm your hands in mine. But I am frozen in place, cold and gray as the pane through which we look. I can only stand and watch as you slip back into shadow until all that remains is the surprise in your eyes, your prints upon the glass, the evening, the rain. I like this one that describes a little something about her. She seemed to be a kind of a private person to me, yet she did socialize well, but she still felt like she had some part of herself that she liked to keep to herself, as we all do. And this describes a little bit about herself from her for us, I think, an elegant sufficiency. I was a lonely child, my mother said, given to climbing tall trees and just sitting up there, to running solitary under pine trees, down gravel roads, to tucking into corners, book in hand. I was a lonely child, my father said, riding at dusk through empty fields, walking late down trot lines, waiting in the lingering smoke for moonrise on the prairie, always late for supper, eating alone, curling away from others, a leaf in the flame. I was a lonely child, my teacher said, walking playground perimeters, counting coup on fence posts, turning, round and round, clinging tightly to cold chains, flying away, higher and higher, white whistle of wind shimmering in my ears. They said I was lonely, but I remember only an elegant sufficiency of contented solitude. A lot of people loved her poetry, and of course y'all are some of the folks that did as well. And this is how she described some of her own writing, a solitary persuasion. Writing is solitary, a private thing, dreaming secret dreams, wide-eyed, sweaty, heart surging, mind alert, a pounding in my throat. Imagining myself a watcher in the shadows as tales fantastic and unknown unfold before my startled eyes. At a silent loom I'd sit, weaving dream bits in and out, stitching a silken tapestry, plaiting phantom threads into whole cloth, more real to me than heavy tweed, as solid as the silent rocks, whose stories, as yet, untold. And I love this in the back of her book. It's going to lead us into the last poem. There's a picture here of a chalk Buddha sitting on a stone pyramid. My chalk Buddha sits atop a stone pyramid, surrounded by green. In the hard spring rain, milky tears slip over the stone to join the earth again. With each passing year, the features soften and
the essence remains, bodhisattva's rest. In each of us, quiescent, ready to be born. This last poem is from The Jewel in the Lotus. It is written by Grace Cook in partner with White Eagle, which is a spirit that she had communication spiritually, soul with, as she wrote this book and others. And I love this one. It reminds me of meditation and has beautiful imagery. It's called Lake of Peace. Arise out of yourself. Let go of the garment of the body. Seek the place of healing, silence, and tranquility. Seek the lake of peace within, calm and tideless. Let the boat of the mind glide slowly from its moorings. Leave the turbulent, restless river. Past the soft green fingers of the rushes, into the lake's cool silver, quiet, rippling, and the proud. Hear the unruffled heart you must wait. Wait not impatiently for the long-sought action. The eager self outstretched to grasp and to hold tightly. Wait gently as the water waits for the cool touch of light upon its moving stillness, for the pulse of the evening air steadily beating. There is calm here and awareness of nature. So be tranquil and aware of God. Though the hand of time is still closed to your desires, let go, desire, for it is the measure of your uncertainty or lack of faith. By the clear light of aspiration, you shall see there is peace in acceptance, that the will may be done, this divine will may be done. Rest in the timeless center of your being, the dwelling place of wisdom. When you are ready, the appointed hour shall come. Thank you. Thank you all for being here and supporting me and smiling and hugging and loving. You all are so beautiful. I'd love to be here.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear DJ. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you.
Birthday cake in the kitchen, that's good.
Birthday cake.
Sure. Birthday cake in the kitchen right now. I'd like them to come back around robin. It's a beautiful thing. We're glad we're here. Otherwise, tables and chairs have got nothing to say for themselves.